Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, my name is Andrea and I'm a music photographer based in London and I do videos mostly about that. So for this video, it might sound like a bit of a negative one. I don't want it to come across that way. This is just more of a cautionary tale or, for someone who is planning or thinking about going into the concert photography or music industry in general. It's just a few things that I didn't know when I started off and that can be quite challenging and sometimes unexpected, so maybe it can be helpful for someone. And also another disclaimer, this is not to say that this is not a really amazing and fun job, it's just a list of the things that can be a bit more challenging. Just like any job has its challenges, this job also has its own. So let me know if you want to see a video about the best things about being a concert photography as well, because there are loads. So just let me know down in the comments, and also don't forget to subscribe and like the video. It helps the video reach other people. And yeah. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the worst things about being a music or concert photographer. Number one, your work hours are going to be a bit flipped. This can be a good thing. If you also have a day job, this means that you can probably do both jobs at once. You can go to your day job and then instead of going back home, you go to a venue and shoot a concert. So you can do both at once. But for the most part, your sleep schedule, your social schedule, both of those things can be a little bit flipped because you're going to be mostly out at night and working at night as opposed to working during the day. And a lot of the times you start work at 6, 7 or 8 p.m. and you finish, at the early hours in the morning, which not only, like I said, can mess a little bit with your schedule. If you are a girl or identify as a girl, female, woman, it can be a little bit more of a dangerous schedule because you have to go back home late at night, and that can be a little bit more dangerous when you do it in the early hours of the morning. And that is something that I never really considered before I actually was in that situation. So just make sure that you're safe, get an Uber if you can and stuff like that. So that's one of the bad things. Another bad thing about being a concert photographer is that you really have to learn how to work under pressure. There's a lot of time constraints when you're working, whether it be the time that you have to get a good shot because of the 3-song rule, which if you don't know, a lot of the times, especially in larger venues, you are only allowed to shoot the band on stage for the first 3 songs and then you're expected to leave or you're kicked out basically. So you just have maybe 10 minutes to get a good shot, and that can be quite challenging, especially if you're starting off. But even if you're established, it can be a little bit stressful, and it definitely gives you a bit of adrenaline and stuff. And yeah, you just have to be very focused and prepared. And in addition to that, there's usually quite a quick turnaround for the photos. You're expected to make them available as soon as possible because a lot of the times people want to see a photo of the concert maybe the next day, the day after the concert, because that's when people are the most engaged and most interested in seeing photos of that event. Because and then the band plays at another venue at another city, and then those photos might not be as relevant as they were at the time. I mean, personally, to me, the relevancy doesn't really fluctuate that much, but I think for a lot of, magazines or people that are reporting on the gig, reporting on the news, I think it's very important to them to have pictures quickly. So a lot of the times, this is what happens. A lot of the times you go to a concert late at night, you get there at 8, shoot till like midnight, get home, you need to sort through all of them, you need to edit them to their final stage, and you need to send it to whoever you need to send it, maybe early the next morning or even that night. So you're probably gonna go to sleep at 4 a.m. or I don't know how long it takes you to edit, but it can be a little bit soul crushing. It can feel a little bit rushed and stressful, but it's part of it. And yeah. Next thing. So although the work environment is very fun, full of energy, most people that are there are having, the time of their lives. It can be a little bit distracting and a little bit challenging because let's say that you're working where there's a photo pit. There are hundreds, if not thousands of people behind you, screaming, dancing, moving around, and that can be a little bit distracting to your focus. Like imagine if you're in an office trying to write something or think of something or problem solve, and there's just thousands of people screaming and dancing around you. Sometimes it's harder to focus, but it's also quite energetic. It kind of fuels me personally. I kind of get inspired by the whole energy, but it can be a little bit distracting and challenging for sure. And when there isn't a photo pit, a lot of the times, if you don't get there early, you might have to expect to fight a little bit for your spot in the front of the stage because there isn't a designated space for you. So a lot of the times you have to negotiate a little bit with the people that are there, or again, get there super early so you can get a good spot. And yeah. Another thing is that your equipment is never really safe. The amount of times I've had beer thrown over me, or, you know, people kicking and your camera hitting mic stands or people, most of the times it is by accident, but you really have to be careful with your gear because it's gonna get better. There's so much going on. There's people crowd surfing, there's people falling on top of you, people just throwing themselves everywhere, and there's sweat and spit and beer, and you just have to really kind of be careful with your equipment so it doesn't get destroyed. Also, this doesn't happen very often, but it does happen every once in a while. Sometimes people in the crowd get a little bit upset at you, like taking photos because your arms are maybe, you know, higher up, it gets in their way. And I understand that. Most of the times people are understanding and very respectful, but sometimes you can get some sort of bitter or angry person that, you know, tries to get in front of you or sabotage you, or like pull your hair, pull your arm down. This has happened to me before, and it's not very common, but it does happen. So, you know, just be prepared. Maybe wear a ponytail or something, and don't wear long earrings because you can get your earlobes ripped off. So yeah. Another one of the worst things about being a concert photographer is that I feel like a lot of your creativity can be a bit limited by the circumstances and the rules of shooting a live concert, because a lot of the times you're not really allowed to stand where you want to be. There are designated areas for you, or there's like thousands of people around you, so you can very easily move around and get different angles or different shots. A lot of the times you can't use flash. A lot of the times there is a time restraint as to how long you can be there working, and that can really limit your creative vision a little bit. I feel like this happens to me, especially when I'm not really allowed to use flash, because if you know my work, it's very heavily based around the aesthetic of flash. I think that high contrast and stuff like that. So it can limit your creative freedom a little bit. It can force you to have to adapt your style to fit the criteria and the expectations of that environment. And, you know, sometimes that can trigger a bit of creativity in your work as well. For example, with me, I don't know if I would have fallen in love with flash so much if I didn't feel obligated to use it at smaller venues. Again, there's a huge difference between smaller and bigger venues. I just filmed a video about it. I don't know if it's gonna be on my channel before this one, but if it is, I'm gonna link it down below. They are basically polar opposites. So I really found out about my love for flash photography in smaller venues, and in larger venues, I wasn't able to carry on with that style. So these rules kind of depend a little bit on the venue and the band that you're shooting, but as a general rule, I'd say that you don't have as much creative freedom as you would if you are, you know, in a studio photo shoot, for example. You're not really able to tell your subject how to pose. You're not really in charge of the lighting. You're not really in charge of the set. You're not really in charge of how long you can stay there. All of those things are kind of done for you, and you have to adapt to that. So that can be one of the biggest challenges, I think. The next worst thing about being a concert photographer, I'd say, might be the limited access, because a lot of the times you will need a photo pass to be able to shoot a concert, and that can be hard to get for some people. I remember when I first started off, I didn't really even know how to get it, who to ask for one, what were the credentials, what did you need to have, what did you need to write under the email, basically who to ask for and what to ask for and how. I just didn't know anything, and that can be quite limiting, because I think in a lot of other genres of photography you can start off pretty much off the bat. You know, if you like portrait photography, you don't need, you know, permission to practice. You can just ask a friend to model for you and you can practice. And shooting at concerts, a lot of the times you need to have permission to be there, so it can be tricky. Also, smoke machines are literally my biggest enemy, because like I said, I love using flash, and when flash reflects on the smoke, you basically just get a white screen. You don't see anything. It's so difficult, and unfortunately for me, it's very popular in concert venues. So Siri?
Just a moment.
I'm not, I'm not talking to you. And also along the same lines, you get lighting, and lighting is so challenging at concerts. And if you know anything about photography, lighting is one of the most important things that you need to pay attention to and work around or work with and learn about. And in concert photography, you get the worst lighting conditions you could ever dream of, because it's harsh lighting, it's back lighting. So basically the subjects are backlit. So, you know, you can't see anything. They're just dark. The light sometimes flashes into your lens and just like blurs everything, causes this huge lens flare, and the lighting is also very harsh. There's a lot of contrast. You don't get a lot of leeway. It's just not a very forgiving lighting situation. It's very hard to work around it. So that's definitely very frustrating as a photographer, but also, you know, it's a challenge, so it's also kind of fun, but it is definitely one of the worst things about shooting in a concert environment. Another thing that sucks about being a concert photographer is that being a woman, sometimes you're just really not taken very seriously. People really underestimate you, or just don't respect you in general and think you're there for the wrong reasons. And it can be hard to establish a bit of respect. But again, this is not really exclusive to the music industry. I think this is in any industry, and that obviously sucks. And I wouldn't say that I've had really bad experiences. I feel like London is developed enough in the creative industry. It's just, it is a city that respects creatives. I mean, not all the time, but I feel like in a general way, I've had mostly positive experiences, but I have had a few that haven't been so positive. A lot of my friends have told me stories as well of how they've been, you know, undermined or disrespected or just not treated right. And that's definitely one of the worst parts of the job. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the monetization and why it kind of sucks in concert photography. It can be very hard to make money because, first of all, it's very competitive. A lot of the times people think that just because you love doing it, that you can do it for free. Like, it's hard to evolve from, you know, being a hobbyist into being a professional. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges in this industry. Let me know if you would like to see a video about this, about how to monetize your work as a music photographer, about the different ways that you can make money, and just maybe a few tips on how to monetize your career in general. Let me know if you'd like to see a video on that in the comments down below. Let me know your worst experiences working as a concert photographer. I know there's a lot of funny ones out there. Let me know if you had any horrible experiences. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know what you would like to see next. Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe for more. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on my next one. Bye-bye.